Welcome back to the podcast. Today we've got a behavioral specialist, maybe one of the United States premier behavioral specialist, James Bond, with us. Today we're going to learn a little bit how to capture attention. Maybe, if you clicked on this, you saw our clickbait heading, and you're going to see why, because James has a phenomenal process for really having ideas and information stick to people's brains. His book, Brain Glue, is something that we're really going to enjoy. James, welcome to the show.
Anthony, thank you for having me. This is a delight. Looking forward to it.
When we get into, the world is getting faced by so much information coming at all of us at 1,000 different miles an hour, right? And my judgment is it's hard to get somebody's attention and get their attention to stick long enough to get something done with people. With the amount of overflow that people have, everybody's drinking off a fire hose. Where do we start with looking at the human, and how do we get their attention?
So you have to understand that the brain has patterns that it loves. Okay, there are certain patterns when it hears if I say Jack and Jill went up I think everybody's going to say hill. Okay, we may have heard that when we were 10, 20, maybe 50 years ago. We heard that. Not for me. Okay, I'm older or more. There you go. And yet, on my deathbed, I'll be dying, and somebody says, "Hey, Jack and Joe went up there." And I'll go, "Hill, the vegetable of water." I mean, I'll remember it. Why? Because there are certain patterns. Rhyme is one of those patterns that sticks to the brain like glue, and it sticks to the brain so much that not only can you sell products and services and ideas, but you can get a guy freed from an almost certain guilty verdict in a murder trial. If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. Okay,
That's right.
that's Johnny Cochran got O.J. Simpson freed from an almost certain guilty verdict in a murder trial. I remember after the trial, two of the jurors were being asked by a journalist, with all that evidence against O.J., why'd you find him not guilty? And one of them responds in confidence, while the other one nods her head in agreement. And she said, "We knew if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. The glove didn't fit, we had to acquit." I mean, that's how powerful it is. But it works, if you're trying to persuade somebody, if you're trying to, you're trying to persuade. I have this woman, she says, "You're an expert in brain glue. Can you help me with my 14-year-old son?" I'm like, "Okay." I don't know what they're going to throw at me.
Right.
She says, "Well, he's 14 years old. And he said to me, 'Mommy, why do we have to follow so many rules in life?'" Okay, so I'm brainstorming with the mom, and I said, "So let's see, let's come up. What rhymes with rules? How about fools? Only fools don't follow rules." Okay, that's a starting point. But let's add a metaphor because metaphors can be really powerful, you know. So we brainstormed and came up with a metaphor, and then I sat with her and her son, and I said, "You asked your mom why we have to follow so many rules in life, right?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, think about it. If you're thirsty, you could always drink out of the toilet, but why would you want to? Remember, only fools don't follow rules." He looks up at me and he goes, "Oh, that makes sense." First, getting a 14-year-old to say that anything makes sense is a miracle. So I quickly escaped before he asked me any other questions. But does it really make sense? Or did I just simply trigger the emotion centers of the brain? So think of the political phrase, "You can't hug a child with nuclear arms." It's called anchoring, okay? That means you're taking two things that don't normally go together and you put them together. You want to take things that are emotional. So you can't hug a child, okay? You get one emotion from that. With nuclear arms, whoa, it's a whole different emotion. When you put those two pieces together, suddenly you have this this thing that connects with the mind. I'm not against or for. I'm not going to talk about gun control. Okay, I don't want to get into that, but I love this phrase because it relates to brain glue. And it's this comedian said, "The right to bear arms is almost as crazy as the right to arm bears." And it's like, what? It resonates. Okay.
Yeah, it kind of tricks the mind. It makes the mind kind of go, "Oh," right. It pops the mind out a little bit.
Comedians love that.
Yeah.
I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy. That's called chiasmus. Okay. I've got this one because I'm older. And you can sort of relate to this. I'd rather wake up and pee than pee and wake up. Okay.
I would much
It's
rather wake up and
chiasmus, which is a flip. Chiasmus is all for one and one for all. It's a flip.
yeah, 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 good. I like I
That works
like so
really well. So yeah, it's just
a fun way for
go
the
ahead.
brain to fun way for the brain to kind of dance on an idea. Like it kind of grabs it and goes, "Oh," and it's like you think you have it, then all of a sudden the brain kind of goes, "Oh, there's a whole other way of looking at it." So it kind of pops the brain from its comfort zone a little bit and it actually makes it hold on to it and think about it for that second. And is that what makes it hold to the brain? Is that what sticks it
Yes,
to the brain?
there are certain things that patterns that stick to the brain. I'll give you a simple conceptual pattern, okay? So you're driving down the street, away from your home. You get out of your driveway and you drive down the street and you're looking at homes, or, you've got homes or apartments, whatever's down the street. You're not going to look at that every day and go, oh, look at that guy's home. Oh, look at that guy's home. You ignore them because you've seen them so many times. But one day you get in your car and you start driving down the street, and two homes down the street, there's flames coming out of the guy's window. Triggers your brain. Your brain's going to go, whoa, what? Does he know his house is on fire? Is it going to burn my house down? Did he call 911? I mean, it's a trigger. There are certain things that trigger in the brain. They're instinctively triggers in the brain. And what you want, the more you can understand those triggers, the easier it is to stand out from the crowd. I mean, the problem is I'm old enough to remember young kids crossing the street, texting, and not even noticing traffic. Now we see guys 70, 80 years old crossing the street, texting on their phone. They're not even noticing traffic. It's like, come on, you're going to get killed. But the point is that we're so bombarded with knowledge and information, especially in this information age, that we tend to, things don't stand out from the crowd. You've got to really jump like crazy. You have to have flames coming out of your window for them to notice. And so brain glue focuses on brain triggers.
So is there an emotional attachment to the emotion of it? I mean, or is there attachment because of the emotion? Is it because, hey, the house is on fire, right? Obviously, a big deal. And then, concern about my house. Is anybody else getting hurt? Right? Is the emotional part of it another part of the part that makes it stick? Is having, because oftentimes if I tie something to a big emotion, I feel like that makes it. When I'm doing sales or I'm doing something, if I can tie it to the pain of what they're doing, if I have a topic or something I want them to remember, and I can tie it to the pain of what they're doing, oftentimes I feel like that's a good bond to create, so they will remember that piece. Is that the same thing we're doing with brain glues? We're trying to get an idea attached to an emotion, and by having the opposite in there, right, having the two sides in there, it kind of creates that emotion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think what happens, we don't realize there are two major studies, one by Harvard professor and one by Nobel Prize winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman. And they both discovered and showed how more than 90% of buying decisions are emotionally triggered. Logic could be a part, but it's emotion, including finance. Financial decision making happens on an emotional standpoint, from an emotional standpoint. In marketing, we often say you want people to know, like, and trust you. Okay. And that makes sense. That's part of emotion. What if you hate the guy? Are you going to buy from him? Probably not if you have alternatives. Okay. So you have to like the guy, but we don't always have that luxury or opportunity. I mean, I started with an advertising agency, and advertising, unless you have a famous person like, a famous person that is working with you, like I have Warren Buffett or something, because I've worked with Warren Buffett's team, that helps. But you don't always have that luxury in marketing and advertising, or an email. You're sending an email. You don't have an opportunity for them to know who you are enough to know, like, and trust you. So you want to trigger the emotion centers of the brain, and there are lots of ways to do that. You know, there are brain trigger words. I love brain trigger words. Okay, I love dirty. Okay, would you
I
put
like dirty
dirty as
too.
part of your the name of your company or product? Well, how about the movie Dirty Dancing?
There you
Was
go.
it dirty? Were they running naked through the thing? Naked is
Yeah,
another
yeah,
trigger word. Okay, they have Jamie Oliver. He's the naked chef. Okay,
that's right.
what is that? He naked? There is
No,
a, by the way, there's a channel in Russia that actually has a naked weather lady. Okay, which is actually kind of interesting. We don't have it here, but I saw it on, But it's a trigger word. So
I'm surprised
dirty,
that's not
dirty,
Latin
rotten
TV.
scoundrels,
Yeah,
dirty Harry.
yeah, there you go. So the word dirty itself, just that part of you that's kind of like, oh, that part of you, a little boy goes, stop being, that dirty talking, something you're not supposed to do. It actually creates a little, it pulls that emotion and pops out because you're not supposed to like dirty. You're not supposed, it's kind of it's naughty behavior.
Exactly. So I wanted um, uh, writers from major magazines to do a review of my book. Okay, like Business Week and Fortune magazine and stuff like that. So I sent an email to them, And this was my dirty week because I was really into dirty as a big word. I said, oh, let me use dirty in this and see what happens. So the headline of the email was the dirty truth about an article you wrote. Okay, and in the email I say, dirty is a trigger word, and it's my book Brain Glue has lots of details and examples of that. But the dirty truth about an article you wrote. You think people responded within 24 hours? Two immediately responded and said, "Okay, you got me. I like that dirty truth thing. Okay, send me a copy of your book. I want to review it." Okay, because it wakes up the brain. Again, it's like flames coming out of the window. You want flames coming out of your product, flames coming out of your pitch, flames coming out of your book if you're selling a book. I had John Gray is telling me about his book, Men, Women, and Relationships. One of the most incredible relationship books ever. People who read the book loved the book. They loved it. And yet he couldn't get people to buy it. He's lucky he sold ultimately 20,000 copies of the book. And he was frustrated. People love the book who read it, but I can't get them to read it. And then he's in a seminar trying to promote the book, and he says something, and all the women start laughing hysterically, and the men look at the women and go, What are they laughing at?" And then he comments and he says, "See, it's interesting. Some things women laugh at and men don't get, and some things men laugh at and women don't get." So one of the women hollers out from the audience, "It's almost like men are from a different planet. What planet do you think men are from?" And he says, "I guess men are from Mars." And the whole audience laughs hysterically. So when he gets home, he goes, I got a really good reaction from men are from Mars. Where are women from? I guess women are from Venus. Venus is the god of love. My book isn't selling anyway. What if I change the title to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and tweak the content a little so I refer to it throughout the book, but keep the same book? What do you think happened? Almost overnight, 500,000 copies got sold, then 1 million, then 2 million, then 5 million. In my book, I say he sold 10 million copies. Well, I know Steve Harrison, it helps him with marketing. He says, "No, you're wrong." I said, "But I did the research. I talked to John." He said, "No, no, no. We've sold over 50 million copies of the book."
Wow.
He went from
Wow.
20,000 to 50 million just because he changed the title. Wow. You know, I mean, it's amazing. And so what he used was a metaphor because men aren't really from a different planet. I mean, I think some of you ladies out there probably think we are, but we're not really from a different planet. But it's a metaphor, and metaphors work really well. I mean, talking about, I have Jack Canfield who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. It isn't like you open up the book and you get chicken soup, okay? And he was telling me how, and he loves the book. He's forced everybody in his company he got copies for everybody in his company. He's forcing them to read it. But he was telling me how, but not just read it, but apply it. And he's telling me how he wrote the book. It's 101 motivational stories that will change your life. And he was thinking, I guess I could call it 101 motivational stories that will change your life. But other people can have the same title. I don't like that. It took him about a month of thinking and sleepless nights, basically. And one day he woke up and he said, "Well, chicken soup makes you feel better usually if you feel sick or you feel bad. Maybe I should call my book Chicken Soup for the Spirit." Doesn't sound right exactly, but it's close. Chicken Soup for the Spirit. And he said he had about a week of sleepless nights after that because he liked it. It was close, but it wasn't there. And then he went, there's a brain glue tool called alliteration. He didn't know that back then, but he knew it didn't sound right. And he said SOUP, soup, soul, chicken soup for the soul. And he went, wow, that works. Chicken soup for the soul. He launched Chicken Soup for the Soul, and he had to, promote it a little bit. He sold 500 million copies. Well, 100 million copies of Chicken Soup for the Soul and 400 million of the other chicken soups. Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul, Chicken Soup for the Cancer Survivor Soul. 500 million books. How many people live in America? That's more than all the people in America. He couldn't believe it. He's like, it's like if he made like $1 a book, 500 million books. That's not bad. I'll take half a buck. I'm okay with that. 500 million books with the title Chicken Soup for the Soul. And it's because it resonated with the brain, with a part of the brain where people went, oh, wow. I mean, obviously, you have to have a good subtitle saying, 101 stories that will, make you feel good and change your life. But Chicken Soup for the Soul makes you stop. It's like flames. You go like, what? Chicken Soup for the Soul? What's that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Well,
amazing.
it's the same thing like the dummy books, right? The dummy books were great, right? Windows for Dummies, Excel for Dummies. It was a great topic because you knew that if I could read this, if a dummy could get it by this book, I'll get it from this book. It just broke it down in a way that wasn't intimidating. Like I wanted to learn at the time. It was about I think it was Excel or whatever one it was, and all of a sudden you realized they just kind of broke it down in a really easy way, and it was catchy. And then all of a sudden, every time a dummy book would come out, you're like, oh yeah, I read that dummy book before, and they were easy to read and it was easy to go through. So it just made it a known entity, and it stuck out from the other 1,000 books that were on Excel or 1,000 books that were on whatever the topic is. Same thing with that Venus and Mars book. It was a great way. Like you're different than your wife. You have this male energy, and you're different than the females. And it was great for someone finally kind of broke that down and said, let's look at it like, hey, we are different. And it was great to have that title gave you a second to say, yeah, I relate to that, right? I can relate to that. But it was I'm certain that the other titles were great, but you needed something that stopped you for a second just absorb it and go, ah, great. Now I can take this book and my wife and I can look at it and see that how can we impact our relationship by thinking through some of these ideas. So I love that. So just finding ways to relate to. So how do you start with putting it together? Like how do you start? You got an idea. What's the practices you do to start to create the brain glue words? How do you start to find them?
Okay, so let me give you an example. Um, so there's a mom and her son in Utah who have no business experience, and within 2 years, they developed a product, and within 2 years, they sold $100 million. Less than 2 years, I think it was 18 months. They sold $100 million worth of the product. How did they sell it? Okay, so here's how they came up with it. So it's a toilet stool. When you're sitting in the bathroom on the toilet, and she has problems with going to the bathroom, the whole thing. And so, but they know that physiologically, if you can raise your feet about 6 or 8 inches above the ground when you're on a toilet, it actually helps your body go to the bathroom. Okay, so they thought it is a really good product. A lot of people don't know, that this is actually helpful for you. And so we could call the product a toilet stool, but I don't like the word toilet stool. It doesn't really work well, okay? And part of why this doesn't work is because we think logically, but we buy emotionally. And so you have to sell emotionally. And rhyme is a good way to do it. It's one of the tools, okay? Just like trigger word is one of the tools. And so she's thinking, okay, so toilet stool. What's another word for toilet? Because I don't like having toilet stool as the product name. So potty, we call it a potty. Like for kids, it's a potty. And I'm kind of squatting. Squatty potty. Let's call it the squatty potty. His sales exploded. They actually made it onto Shark Tank, and almost all the investors were standing in line. They wanted to invest, A, because it was making so much money, but B, because it's called Squatty Potty. It's a name that triggers in the brain. And it's just like, I'm sure after this podcast, like 3 hours after the podcast, if somebody says, what was the name of that toilet stool again? Everyone will remember the Squatty Potty. It sticks to the brain like glue, but it also sticks to the pocket and gets your money coming out of your pocket. That's what it does.
Well,
It's amazing.
anybody who's gotten that squatting position realizes there is something about it, right? There's something about taking, I just came back from Asia, and that's how they go, right? They have the squatting position.
Yep.
Literally, the toilets are in a squatting position, and there's something more ergonomically correct about that working, and so yeah, I can see how that worked for her, and it just was a matter of taking the ugliness out of the toilet, right? Squatty potty makes it a little bit more fun. And you kind of get, great, if I put this thing right there, it's an easy one to use. And now they get a production value and all the rest of the putting this together. It's a genius idea. It just had to have a cute name to be able to sell it, so people would want to have that thing show up at their house.
Well, because rhyme works really powerfully. Okay. So let me give you an example. A lot of people don't know this, but Wonder Bread invented sliced bread. When people say, wow, that's the greatest thing since sliced bread, they're actually referring to Wonder Bread. Okay. About the turn of the century, the 20th century. And so Wonder Bread for 10 years, because they invented sliced bread, it's white bread, so they bleached it white and all that stuff. For 10 years, it dominated the bread industry. Then competitors came up with a phrase that threw Wonder Bread almost into bankruptcy. Okay. What was the phrase? The whiter your bread, the quicker you're dead. Okay.
Oh,
Listen to this, okay? So we had COVID. We went through COVID. Well, they went through this thing called pellagra, and pellagra was the absence of vitamin B3, makes you really sick, very similar to COVID. And then people were dying because they didn't have vitamin B3 in them. And so the competitors recognized that when they bleach the bread, it kills a lot of vitamins and nutrients inside the bread. And so they talked to journalists and they said, "Well, do you realize the whiter your bread, the quicker you're dead?" And they went, "What?" I said, "Yeah." They started saying, Wonder Bread has like no nutrients, so people who eat Wonder Bread die often. Whoa, I didn't know that. And they suddenly write articles. Now people didn't want to eat Wonder Bread anymore. Now what Wonder Bread created was fortified food where they put niacin, which has lots of vitamin B3, and then nutrients, vitamins, and minerals inside the bread, and that saved them. But they were dominant. They were selling a gazillion Wonder Breads. That, like all these people were buying Wonder Bread, and suddenly almost everybody stopped because the whiter your bread, the quicker you're dead. The power of a phrase, of a rhyming phrase, sticks to the brain. You walk away from it and you go like, "Whoa!" I mean, this is really powerful. So let me give you. I love metaphors because men are from Mars, women are from Venus is a metaphor. So what if you have a product that's kind of it's tough to describe? Okay, so Paul Tran developed an electric razor for man's private areas. I don't want to get too much into that, but okay, for man's private areas. And so he wanted to come up with a name that everybody would understand what the product does, but that wouldn't be insulting to people, because people might get turned
yeah,
off
right,
by it.
right, right, right. Yeah,
So
you
he's
want it to be
thinking,
embarrassing, right? You're a man.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
So
you don't
what
wanna be
would you come
embarrassed
up
by
with?
right.
Guess what he came up with? Okay, this is where metaphors, it's just like what? He decided to call it the lawnmower.
There you go.
A lawnmower, okay? He decided and his sales exploded. He sold over $100 million worth of it. I mean, he just couldn't believe how much money he was making from this thing. He changed the name of his company to Manscaped. We're landscaping a man with a lawnmower. I remember seeing an ad in a store, and it said the lawnmower with an arrow pointing to the shaver. So if I bought I haven't bought it, but if I bought the lawnmower, I wouldn't share it with my friends. Let's start there, okay?
That's
But I told him the story. Hey, guess what I just bought? I bought the lawnmower. The lawnmower, what do you have to share you have to mow your lawn? I said, no, no, no. It's for shaving man's private areas. They start laughing and say, hey, the guy would tell his wife, hey, Mary, guess what James just bought? The lawnmower. Why? He has to mow his lawn? No, it's to mow his body.
now listen, Mary's happy about that. You ask any wife, they're happy you go manscaped. They're tired of seeing that thing ungroomed down there. Yeah, so it's a need, right? But you got to touch the male. You got to do with the man, right? If you go out there and call it the bushwhacker or something, that might be a little weird. But to come up with manscaping, that's it's macho. Manscaping, right? You can almost hear the dun dun dun, right? It all of a sudden it's great. Now it's something that great men do, right? It's a way that we groom ourselves, we take care of ourselves, and of course, well developed men should manscape, right? It feels like what a proper guy should do. So yeah, I get it. So it really does bring in and kind of tie to the male idea of what we should look like, right? And manscaping, of course, I should manscape.
Well, it triggers different parts of the brain also. That's what it does. If I said you want to buy the lawnmower and I showed the thing, your brain has to go, wait, that's not a lawnmower. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Now you're triggering different parts of the brain. And there's a Hebb's law says neurons that fire together wire together. So it's if you can, neuroscience talks a lot about this. So if you can present something, chicken soup for the soul. Now that's not chicken soup; it's a book. But okay, now all this stuff connects in your brain, and it becomes easier to sell because it's easier to remember because the brain connects all these things together and goes. It's like Shark Tank, you know. Somebody makes it onto Shark Tank. What do you get eaten by sharks? No, but it's conceptually, it feels like it when you're on the show. That it feels like you're being attacked by sharks, but it's not a Shark Tank. I mean, it's like I love Rocky Road ice cream. When you open Rocky Road ice cream, it has rocks in it. Did you know that? No, it doesn't. It doesn't have rocks in it, but it's Rocky Road ice cream that was developed during the Great Depression, okay, in America. And so first it's a metaphor or analogy. It's not really Rocky Road. It's chocolate ice cream with nuts and marshmallows, but it's bumpy like a rocky road. They actually stole the name from somebody else, but that's a whole other story. But they decided to call it Rocky Road. That's the first thing, is it uses a metaphor, Rocky Road. The second thing it does is it uses alliteration, a repetition of sound. Rocky Road. It's like Coca-Cola, Best Buy, PayPal, TikTok. You think it's a coincidence that these billion-dollar companies have alliteration? They didn't start. People say, "Well, they're rich." They didn't start rich. Coca-Cola started. They struggled. Okay, but the name resonates. It sticks to the brain. So Rocky Road ice cream has a metaphor and it has alliteration, a repetition of sounds. Rocky Road. It also has a third thing, which is humor. Back in the days of the Depression was called a rocky road. We're all on a rocky road. So their concept was, we're all on a rocky road anyway. We might as well have Rocky Road ice cream. Kind of makes you laugh. Rocky Road ice cream. But they've got three brain triggers they use. And suddenly Rocky Road helped Dreyer's ice cream go from zero to virtually a blockbuster. They became massively successful because they understood these are brain triggers that are already in the brain. So what you want to do is you want to use the brain triggers. And so one of the brain triggers is memory. If we see a movie like McDonald's, restaurants, they advertise, they have like billions of dollars to spend or hundreds of millions of dollars to spend on advertising. So we make the mistake of thinking, if I hear it over and over and over again, it sticks to the brain. That's true. Okay. But we think, well, maybe we should copy them. So I have this really great article. Okay. And it's an ad that people have seen and loved that was actually a crappy ad and you don't even know it, okay? Guess what? Remember the Got Milk campaign and the milk mustache? They were terrible. Here's an article in Business Week that from about 10 years ago. It's called Got Milked. After 10 years, after $385 million, sales still continue to decline. Why? Now we think Got Milk is fantastic. I want Got trucks. I want, it's really great. You're copying something that's stupid. It sticks. People remember it because they spent $385 million. If you have $385 million, you could probably sell just about anything. Okay, just about anything, not everything. Okay, but think about Got Milk. Okay, my grandparents used to get milk delivered to the doorstep. Okay, everybody drank milk because it has calcium and it strengthens the bones. Okay, but then they realized you can get calcium from spinach. I mean, you have calcium pill. You don't need milk to get calcium. But the second thing is, a lot of people suffered from lactose intolerance. They drink milk and they start feeling sick. Now, I don't have lactose intolerance, but because I know so much about it, I start thinking I should limit how much milk I drink. So if you have lactose intolerance and I say, Got Milk, you might love the campaign, or Milk Mustache. My daughter had a poster of one of the people, when a movie stars, with the milk mustache on her wall, but it didn't mean she drinks milk. If you don't drink milk and I gave you the Got Milk campaign, do you have a reason to drink milk? No, you can love the campaign and not drink milk. That's why you need to understand, Squatty Potty is good because it's explaining to you what the product is and what it does. Okay. All these things. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus is basically saying, hey, men are very different from women, but here's a relationship book that'll help you bring it all together. I mean, they're giving you a reason why you want to buy. If they said instead of Got Milk, if they ran a campaign and said, milk has enzymes that mix with calcium so that it strengthens your bones stronger than anything else. So if you're an athlete, you definitely want to use milk. Now you're giving me a reason to buy the milk. But Got Milk, as great a campaign as it seems, because they spent $385 million, give it to me. It's, sales were declining and they continue to decline, even though everybody loved the advertising campaign.
God,
That's why when you talk about,
I loved milk. There were some other ones that were great, like, Ben& and Jerry's was the king of the rhyme, names, right? Chunky Monkey, Rocky Roads, they had so many great names that were all those kind of, like, kitschy,
yep,
and everybody had a favorite. You walked in, you knew exactly which Ben& Jerry's you were gonna eat because it had a name that stuck out with you, and you could
yep,
remember it.
yep,
Yeah, it was
exactly,
great,
exactly.
great. I think that, you can see that in these billion-dollar brands and how they've learn to do that. So I love when we start to look at easy ways to do it. Now, can I do this with anything I'm doing? Can I do this with construction? Can I do this with painting, a painting company? Can I do this where, where else can I apply this?
Okay, so I had a construction company I work with. I had these three guys who, after 10 years, reached 2 million in sales. That's not bad. two
That's
million in
not bad.
sales, right? Ha ha ha. In 1 year, I took them to 10 million, from 2 to 10, and they went to 32 million 2 years later. So how did I do it? It was one of the early companies when I first started understanding how brain glue works. As a consultant, I get to practice it on my clients. Usually it's 80-20. 80% of the stuff you do is always works, and 20% you experiment. You get to experiment on your clients. So I
Absolutely.
love a whiteboard. So I pulled out a whiteboard and I said, and after 10 years, they had 2 million in sales. Okay. And I said, let's make a shopping list of all the different types of clients you've gone after, because I want to segment it. Okay. To pick a niche or a niche. So I said, let's make a shopping list of every type of client you've worked with over the past 10 years. And it took them a while. They finally came up with this long shopping list. And I said, let's play a game. Let's pretend you're going to only work with one type of client and you're going to say no and pass on everybody else. And they said, well, we don't want to do that. I said, we're just playing a game. Ha ha ha. Okay, we're just playing a game. So I said, okay, fine. So they looked at it and they said, well, there were three projects that we had, one from one insurance company that gave us two clients and one gave us one client, and it's fire restoration for insurance companies. If somebody has a fire,
Yeah.
the first
Right.
thing we
Right.
do is we go in and we check if the frame is damaged. If the frame is damaged, you got to tear down the whole house. But if it's not, then you want to fix it up, make sure it's not going to catch fire again, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so we've had three situations where we actually did fire restoration for insurance companies, and we'd love to work with insurance companies just doing that, because it could be very profitable, and could be a
Yeah.
manufacturing plant burns down, whatever else it is. So I said, okay, fine. So what's the first word that comes to their mind when they have a client that has a fire? And it's really funny because I'm talking to them about it. I said, so they have a fire. What's the first word that comes to mind? They're going, I don't know. What do you think it is? I said, come on. These guys have a client that had a fire. What's the first word that comes to mind? And they were struggling. I said, come on, guys, fire. So yeah, fire. So why don't we come up with a name that has fire? Why don't we call you guys the fire extinguisher for insurance companies? And we'll get the website firex.com. They started laughing. And it's funny because with brain glue, people will laugh sometimes but not apply it. That's really funny. It's like
Right.
the
Right.
lawnmower. Okay, it's really funny, but are you going to actually call the product the lawnmower? So I went with them to two prospects, and as we're talking it through, and I said, so just think of us. We're your fire extinguisher. We won't put out the fire, but we'll put out the fire from an insurance standpoint. We're your fire extinguishers, and just go to firex.com. You'll always be able to get us. The prospects laughed, and by the way, laughers are buyers often.
That's it. That's it. You're
Okay.
taking them off their
The
heels.
prospects laughed, and guess what? By the time we got back to the office, the phone was already ringing. Hey, guess what? I got a fire for you guys to go to. And they went from 2 to 10 million in sales in 1 year. By the way, they razzed me. They said, hey, Bond, we're supposed to be 12 million, because as a consultant, we do. And my response was, shut up. They bought each other brand new, the biggest BMW, get their Beamer levers. So they had three BMWs as gifts because they couldn't believe how many millions of dollars were coming through the door. But yeah, we focused. Here's a construction company, but we came up with an easy name, and because it's easy to remember and it related, it stuck to the brain. Every time they had a client that had a fire, they wanted to call the fire extinguisher,
That's right.
and it
Yeah,
stuck to the brain. I mean,
firex.com is a great one. It's an easy one to remember, easy one to find, right? You know what to do. You look at fire restoration company or some boom, it's got to pop up pretty fast, right? It's an easy one in the search engine. It fits all the categories for a great name and an easy way to find it quickly, you know?
well, and we tend to be like very left brain, very logical. Bob Parsons created a company called Joe Max Technologies, and Joe Max Technologies help people, you know, uh, buy a web name, build a website, stuff like that. And he was struggling because he was going, "This is doing really well. People love what we sell, but somehow people can't remember our name." Joe Max Technologies was named after a street in Arizona, I think it was. Phoenix, yeah, near Phoenix. And so he sat down with his guys and said, let's come up with a really crazy name. What can we call it? And so the guys said, why don't we call it Big Daddy? Okay. And they said, well, they tried to get Big Daddy. It was gone. So what did they call it? Go Daddy. Okay. Go Daddy. Alliteration, a repetition of sounds. the rest, as they say, is history. GoDaddy is a multi-billion-dollar company,
Yeah,
and they
that's right.
started from scratch basically. But because of the name, we get so focused on. Let me give you an example of me. Okay, I'm an idiot, if I may say that. Okay, because I'm trying to teach everybody right brain emotional selling using trigger words, and my book was originally not called Brain Glue. It was called Sell More with the Right Brain Marketing Strategy. Okay, left brain, it's logic. I'm just like, what can I say? We're all in this. If you're logical, you're just going to mess up. And I went to Jack Canfield. He fell in love with my book. And this is a guy that sold 500 million books, and he's like massively wealthy. He's got a big team and everything. He said, I'm forcing everybody to read the book and to apply it. I want them applying this. I want you show me which one of the brain glue tools you're using and applying. But I said, oh, wow, this is great. He said, I'm really pissed off at you because I picked up the book. I got so many books to read. I picked it up and I couldn't put the damn book down because it's so easy to read.
That's
I'm
awesome.
apologizing. I'm so sorry. Can I use that as a quote? He
Yeah,
says, I'll give you quotes. You can videotape me and everything else on one condition. You got to change the title of the book. You're torturing us by teaching us that we have to be emotional selling. Your book is Sell More with the Right Brain Marketing Strategy. I can't even remember the damn title of the book. It's so long. Your book is all about brain glue. You've got to change the book to brain glue. When you sell a book, you want like more than 100
that's right.
reviews because Amazon helps you and all that stuff. And I'm like, do I have to? He said, yes. And he was right, because the book is about brain glue. It's not about sell more with right brain marketing strategy. That's the logical part. But when people understand what is brain glue, why is it called brain glue? Because it sticks to your brain like glue. When you understand how to create a phrase that sticks to the brain like glue, it has a massive impact. Let me give you some examples of phrases that work this way, okay? I'm old enough to remember President John F. Kennedy. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Okay, that's
Great,
really
great
powerful.
statement, right? Powerful, right? It
Okay.
was powerful. It stuck out, right? It took you, it set you back and quit bothering the country. Do something, give back, right? All of a sudden, you felt like that was patriotic. Great, great line.
Absolutely, very powerful. He also said, mankind must put an end to war, or war will put an end to mankind. See, that's chiasmus, it's a flip.
Yeah,
So, Malcolm X, civil rights activist, the black civil rights activist Malcolm X, he could have said, you have no idea how hard it is being a black person in America. Okay, I'll stick to the brain and maybe not, who knows? I mean, we can relate to it, we feel for it and everything else. But he had a much more powerful line. He said, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock, the rock landed on us.
that's right.
Interesting. Okay. He
Yeah,
also said, when you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything.
great line.
These stick to the brain more than, come on, guys, you got to stand for something. You might say that, but I'll say, when you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. Guess which one is going to stick to the brain?
That's
I mean,
right.
it's powerful. It's powerful.
I love it. I got to tell you, James, your ability to see that, right? For an audience, if you're not seeing that, right, like really get the book and it's a wonderful read, easy read. It's a great. You can knock this off in a nice weekend. You got Christmas coming up. Get one, make it stuffers for any of your little entrepreneurs that are out there. Make sure you get this book right now. It's available everywhere. Jump on Amazon, grab the book. And remember, you watch the podcast. You got to see James, and this book is full of great ideas on how to really, formulate ideas that people will stick with. Right, something that you'll have forever. In today's world, as fast as it's going, with everybody drinking off a fire hose, we've got to find ways to have your ideas stick to people's brains. In a world that's full of attention-seeking information, yours has got to be able to stand out above it, and you got to find these little techniques for making it rhyme, for ways from bringing together ideas that kind of contradict each other. All of these ideas are techniques for having your data stick to their brain. And James, I got to tell you, it's you're a genius at this stuff. I love what you make it so simple for us to see. Oftentimes I complicate the hell out of things, and you make it so simple to see how to do this.
Well, we're logical people, I think, and it takes a while. People tell me this as I've discovered this also. Okay, once you understand brain glue, you start seeing it all over the place. I mean, I never realized Coca-Cola is using alliteration or repetition of sound. PayPal, TikTok. I mean, it's just, why do they use it? Do they use it because it's a coincidence or it's a kitschy name? No, they use it because it works. When so I remember when I finally started making seven figures. When you start making seven figures, and I would work as a coach and a consultant before I was making that. But once I started making it, it felt like, did I just break the law? Why? We have like we're making $2,000 a day. Wait a second. I mean, it feels weird. Not today, by the way. It feels nice, but we think it's You have to have an explosion. Well, if you can have an explosion, that's one way to, I guess, get attention. You can wear a clown mask, that'll get attention, but that doesn't do what you want. It's subtle. We think it's huge things, but men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It's subtle. It feels like it's complicated, but you're in a store and you pick up the book. You see the book on it. I remember that's how I bought the book. I was in a store and I'm going, okay, book, book, book. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Well, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. What the heck's that? Leaned over, I picked up the book, and suddenly I went and started looking at it, and then, whoa, this is really great. Because I picked up the book, there's a better chance I'm going to buy it. So here's the story of a woman, a stay-at-home mom, who has more than 5 million Facebook fans, and she spent zero on marketing. Okay? How would you like to have 5 million fans and have to spend zero on marketing? Okay? So what did she do? She created a Facebook page, and she said, well, what am I going to call the Facebook page? Well, I'm a stay-at-home mom, so mommy needs time to herself. Mommy needs a rest. I know what mommy needs. Mommy needs vodka.
Vodka.
Vodka. Mommy needs vodka. I'm one of her fans. How did I become her fan? One of my friends must have been her fan, and I shared a post with me. And I'm looking at the post. She had good posts, but how many people out there have good posts, but you still
That's right.
struggle to get fans? Okay, well, she had good posts. So I'm looking at one of her posts and go, oh yeah, this is really funny. And then I look at it, it's from Mommy Needs Vodka. What the heck's that? Guess what I did? I clicked on the link, went to her page. I'm looking at some of the posts she has. Oh, this is great. And I became a fan. That's how she got 5 million fans. So what you want to do is like flames coming out of the window. You want to, somehow get their attention so they look at it. Once they look at it, touch it, whatever else it is they're going to do, they're going to go, that's interesting. I got to check that out. And when they check it out, there's a better chance they're going to buy it. There's a product, Blue Emu. You know what Blue Emu is? It's arthritis cream that you put on, okay? And they had Johnny Bench, who's a Hall of Fame baseball
Yeah, yeah.
player. And and I'm sitting and I'm doing something else, working on a computer while the TV's on. And Johnny Bench says, Blue Emu, it works fast and you won't stink. And I go like, what did he just say?
That's right.
He won't stink? Well, he got my attention. Now I'm looking at it. I'm going now from that point forward. I'm watching the video. I'm watching the commercial, and it talks about Blue Emu and everything else. It works fast and you won't stink. It's like whoa. I was working with finance guys, and I love the word vomit. I said, they'll look at an insurance policy, an old insurance policy, and they would say to the client or the prospect, "Have you seen what's in this? This doesn't look very good. The problems in it." I introduced the phrase, I don't want you to vomit, but have you seen what's in this? And and it took a while. I had to really nudge them to train them to say this to clients because they laughed, but they said no. But they said, it's amazing. You say to the prospect, I don't want you to vomit, but have you seen what's in this? They go like, what? You
That's
know,
right. That's right. Yeah, yeah. It's
it
the
triggers the
emotional
brain.
reaction to it. Yeah. Like, oh, there's
Exactly.
no, it's that
Exactly.
bad.
Yeah, exactly. I love the word. That was my vomit week. Okay. Or with a finance company. So they said, so somebody who makes $1 million by the time they're 70, and if they spend $100,000 a year, by the time they're 80, they're going to be broke because you 100,000 times 10 years. Okay. So they wanted to say, um, I want people to understand that if you make $1 million by the time you're 70 and you spend $100,000 a year, by the time you're 80, you're going to be broke. And so I said, okay, so let's think of this. And I came up with a story. They actually struggled coming up repeating this story, but once they started repeating it, it worked well. I said it. I said, so if you make $1 million by the time you're 70, by the time and you spend $100,000 a year, by the time you're 80, you're going to be broke. Who's going to hire you? Well, I think McDonald's hires old people because they need someone to clean the vomit out of their parking lot. It's like, what? I even see your face. What? And that's what but it resonates with the brain because we think people are listening. We're talking and pitching them or whatever. We think they're listening, but they're not. They're thinking, did I forget to close the windows of my car? Is it raining outside? Did I just lose a client? Are we going to, are my people working? Whatever else it is. and they listen to you and they go, yeah, it's interesting. Let me think about it. Send me something, whatever else. But usually that's their way of saying, yeah, I'm not
Uh,
interested.
they're blowing you off. As
If
soon
you
as you
can,
get that, they're blowing you off. As soon as you get it.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So James, I look, I feel like we've got to show people. Look, audience, you guys have got to get this book, right? I'm telling you, without this, your information is getting bypassed. James, what else? What any last minute techniques you've got for showing someone how to create some more brain glue?
First thing you want to think of is an analogy or metaphor by completing the phrase, it's just like, and be as crazy as possible. Don't limit yourself. It's just like a truck or whatever else. It's like a naked man running through my backyard. It's like, what? Come up with the craziest analogy or metaphor you can come up with and use that as a starting point. It doesn't have to be the ultimate one, but it's a starting point. Okay. And when you do that, it starts your brain working on, like, wow, you know, and when you describe my product is just like this or my service is just like this, and you can come up with a metaphor, it sticks to the brain like glue, and it helps you understand how powerful the process of brain glue can be to helping you sell more products or ideas.
So use a metaphor as crazy as possible. Start there with creating some ideas.
It's just like, and have as much fun as you can with that. And that's a good starting point.
I love it. I love it. Jack, I am or James, I'm sorry, James. James, I love where you're going with that. Audience, please take a second right now and please go to Amazon right now. I'm gonna put the link down below here in the comments. Go down there, jump on the link, go grab the book and watch how you can transform your business and your ideas into a profitable center by just changing the name. Right. You guys clicked on this for a reason, right? You clicked on this one because you're looking for that name that's going to impact in the world of lots and lots of there's just so much coming at everybody that's trying to buy your product, right? You need a name that's going to be able to pop out and something that's going to stick to your customer's brain. James, as always, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Well, and the book's on Amazon, so you could do that, Brain Glue. But you can also go to yesbrainglue.com. If you go to yesbrainglue.com, it has lots of information and details on this also. And I will say one thing about the book. The book's an easy read. People are saying they can't believe how easy it is. I'm throwing all kinds of stuff at you because there's so much, but we take them one at a time and we give you, have fun with it, including jokes. And then we give you a simple exercise. And people are going through this and saying, like, this is like the easiest book I've ever gone through. I can't believe it. But yeah, I think you're going to have fun with it. So, yesbrainglue.com.
Please, honest, do that now. I'm telling you, it's a great practice. I've got the book myself. I'm going to read that this weekend. I've got this set up to read, and I'm excited about that because me, I'm always trying to start new ideas. I'm always looking for new ways to impact how we get caught or have our customers see us faster and make sure that that sticks with them. So I'm reading it. Make sure you guys are reading it, James. I'm so grateful to have you on this podcast. I'll make sure that all the comments and all your contact stuff will be down below. Audience, as always, if you could take a second and like and subscribe, thank you for listening to us. We are so grateful, James. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Anthony, so much. This was lots of fun.